The illegal trials of Jesus. The trials of Jesus leading up to his crucifixion parallel the inspection of the sacrificial Passover lamb in the Old Testament. This again highlights Jesus as the true Passover lamb, whose sacrifice fulfills the plan of redemption. In Jewish tradition, the Passover lamb was chosen and inspected before being sacrificed. This process ensured that the lamb had no defects, thus making it an acceptable offering to God. The trials of Jesus are found in all four Gospels, so we will be doing some jumping around to fill in some details. Two systems, Jew and Gentile, combined to produce a death sentence for Jesus. The Romans allowed conquered people to maintain their own legal systems, as long as they didn't abuse those rights. Jewish law required that trial for a capital crime begin during the daytime and adjourn by nightfall if incomplete. Sanhedrin members were supposed to be impartial judges. We have been told numerous times that they have been trying to figure out how to kill Jesus. Adjourn by nightfall. These trials intentionally begin at night so that the supporters of Jesus would be asleep. Annas inspects Jesus, and the most influential member of the Sanhedrin because of his status. The Romans removed him from the position of high priest, and his son-in-law Caiaphas was chosen to replace him. Much like an American president is referred to as president for the rest of their life, so it was with high priests, which was originally a lifetime appointment. Much like the American Supreme Court. Annas questioned Jesus without any witnesses or bringing any accusations against him. He is trying to convict Jesus on his own testimony, which is illegal. Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin inspect Jesus. Although many false witnesses came forward, there was still no wrongdoing found in Jesus. He would eventually be charged with blasphemy for claiming to be the Son of God, a title of divinity. The meeting took place in Caiaphas's house. The whole council at this part of the trial is trying to find anybody to testify against Jesus. The witnesses twist what Jesus said and lie in their testimonies. But they can't come up with agreeing testimony to convict Jesus, which is the law. Jesus still remained silent while being inspected. Now let's detour for just a minute. The Old Testament is covered with references to God being the one who rides the clouds. This seems to be specifically what Jesus is quoting from is his response, which we will return to now. Then, Caiaphas puts Jesus under oath and asks him if he is divine, to which Jesus claims to be the one who rides the clouds, which is God. Incidentally, Jesus later claims to return in the clouds at his second coming. This results in condemnation for blasphemy, but not a death sentence. Disorder broke out after the condemnation, and people started hitting and spitting on Jesus. Then Jesus was taken to Pilate. Luke 23:1. The trial of Jesus had three distinct phases. First, Jesus was sent to Pilate. Pilate then sent Jesus to Herod Antipas. Then, Herod sent Jesus back to Pilate. They examined Jesus from a legal standpoint instead of religious. Pilate's first inspection found no guilt in him. The Jews didn't originally bring any charges against Jesus to Pilate. They wanted Pilate to just take their word that Jesus was a bad guy and execute him. Knowing that Pilate would not execute Jesus for blasphemy, the Jews made up more false accusations. Pilate didn't care about any of the charges, except if Jesus claimed to be a king, which would make him a rival to Caesar. After Pilate finished his first inspection of Jesus, he found him not guilty. This caused the Jews to protest again. When Pilate found out Jesus was from Galilee, he sent him to Herod Antipas, who was tetrarch, because he was in Jerusalem for the Passover. Herod's inspection found no guilt in him. Herod only wanted to see Jesus, so he would perform a miracle for him. Jesus again will not respond or defend himself, and Herod sent him back to Pilate. Pilate again finds Jesus not guilty and lets us know that Herod did also. After again trying to release Jesus, the Jews still demand his execution, and Pilate washes his hands of guilt and caves in, delivering Jesus to be crucified. The Lexham Bible Dictionary, the trial does fail to correspond to procedures laid out in the Mishnah, in that the trial was held at night on the eve of a holy day in an irregular location, with no witnesses for the accused. During and after these events, the King of Creation still didn't fight back, even though it would have been justified. He didn't scold these people for treating him so unfairly. This was to fulfill what Isaiah wrote about him in Isaiah 53:7. According to the law, the Jewish accusers of Jesus were actually deserving of the death sentence for giving a false witness. We are told in Exodus 12:5 that the Passover lamb must be perfect and without blemishes. When John the Baptist first saw Jesus, he declared him to be the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Paul later affirms Jesus as the Passover lamb in 1 Corinthians 5:7. Just as the Passover lamb was inspected before sacrifice, Jesus was examined through these various trials before his crucifixion, and no guilt or blemish was ever found. The crucifixion. Jesus entered Jerusalem on the 10th of Nisan, Palm Sunday. This was the same day the Passover lambs were chosen. Jesus was crucified on the 14th of Nisan at twilight. This was the exact time the Passover lambs were being sacrificed. In Leviticus, the sacrifice was for forgiveness for the one that killed it. Both the Jews and Gentiles were responsible for killing Jesus, which paved the way for forgiveness for all. It was no accident or turn of events, but planned according to Acts 2:23. As the true and final sacrifice, Jesus made all other sacrifices obsolete. Just as the blood of the Passover lamb saved the Israelites from the death angel, the blood of the true Passover lamb, Jesus Christ, saves believers from judgment. Through his sacrifice, Jesus fulfilled the prophetic and sacrificial requirements and offers eternal salvation to all that come to him.